is Ryan Satkoviak. We are, I don't know, what is this today, Clinton? 7? 6? 7?
I don't know.
7
Getting
episodes
closer to
deep.
double digits.
We're getting closer to double digits. We are some portion of the way through the Big Ten on our fall preview series. And we are pleased to be joined once again this afternoon, this evening, wherever you're listening to this morning. I don't fucking know. By Matt Flip from the Roar Lion Roar podcast, one of our esteemed repeat guests. Mr. Matt, sir, how are you doing this evening?
I'm doing great. I'm very honored that I get to appear the week before Big Ten Media Days kick off because Big Ten Media Days are my favorite part of the summer because it's a great time to spend 3 days talking about nothing that we all then consume anyway because it's college football content in this valley of the off season. So looking forward to talking Penn State tonight, and then as the season ramps up, it should be a fun one.
What's the it's the worst time of the year on the sports calendar because it's regular season baseball, like the part of the season where everyone's like, is the playoffs here yet? What's happening? And then there's literally nothing else. So any bit of information we can get on college football will go through the news cycle 500 times before the next news cycle. Clinton, how are you doing tonight?
Doing good, man. It was I've been extremely overloaded at work, and today was an easy Monday. So I'm feeling a little less tired coming in tonight. So I'm doing pretty good. I've been looking forward to talk with Matt about Penn State. I know we missed him for spring, and I was thinking back. The last time we had him on was that Notre Dame Penn State pregame show. So a lot has changed for the Nittany Lions, or maybe a lot has remained the same. Everything that they brought back for this season, but I'm really interested to get his thoughts on this team and talk about the Penn State Nittany Lions. A lot of expectations this year. Again, guys, thank you again if you're joining us live tonight. If you need to know where you can find us live, you can find us on YouTube. Just search ITP CFB in the search bar. Make sure you hit like and subscribe to help us grow the show. If you can't ever check us out live, you can get us the next morning in your preferred podcast platform. Just search Inside the Pylon Midwest College Football Podcast. And of course, always, if you'd like to directly interact with us, follow us on the socials, Instagram and X, at ITPCFB.
Oh, Clinton, I blew it again, man. That's on me. I forgot we had this conversation.
Hey, those mountains blue?
It's Inside the Pylon 6-pack of questions.
Did you crack a can?
I did not tonight.
Oh,
I only got one garage beer left. How disappointing. I need to
fun weekend
reload.
then, I guess. I did not. Yeah, I blew it. I just have my bottled water. So kicking off talking Penn State, Mr. Matt, I always enjoy talking to you about Penn State because they're always one of the most fascinating teams in college football for me. And I think last year was for a completely different reason than this year, right? So heading into the 12-team playoff era, Penn State felt like one of those teams that was a huge beneficiary of it, right? Like, even if you do have the Ohio State boogeyman in your way anymore, which you don't because of the Big Ten schedule, or Michigan, which you don't because Michigan was ass last year and the change in the Big Ten schedule, you're still going to figure that Penn State was going to get, and I had to throw the Michigan dig in there, sorry, that's just old habit. You figured Penn State was going to get into the 12-team playoff more often than not. But heading into 2025, oh no, we lost Matt.
Maybe we just lost his camera. He's still there.
He's still there. Are you still there? Can you hear me? Oh no, I can't hear you. Oh no. Tragedy has struck the Inside the Pylon Midwest College Football Podcast.
Uh-oh, Raggy.
Ruh-roh, Raggy. Oh no. Oh no. Oh no. Oh.
Oh, we have two Matt flips.
We have Matt. Oh wow.
That's pretty legit.
Yeah, sorry, fellas, you got me. It wouldn't be a Riverside recording if I didn't drop, as it always goes on this bad boy.
Do you see
You guys got me?
do you see your extra face?
No, I do not.
We have
good.
four of you
Oh,
on our
my-
screen. Or two of you.
Oh, there he goes. Okay.
There it
the
is.
The imposter Matt Flip has disappeared.
Apologies, boys.
Oh no,
Sorry
it's all
about
good.
that.
You're good.
It is all good. So heading into 2025, Penn State's a little interesting for different reasons than last year. They have taken the playbook that was first populated by Michigan and then redone by Ohio State last year, though. We're bringing the crew back. Everyone who feasibly could have come back, right? Like, there's no way Abdul Carter was coming back, but they're bringing everyone back. They a ton of returning production on both sides of the ball. They get Jim Knowles from Ohio State, a national championship winning coordinator, and it feels like, I don't want to call it a national championship or bust season because I don't know if that's necessarily a fair expectation to put on any given team, but it sure feels like James Franklin and company have pushed all their chips to the center of the table and said, God damn it, we're all in.
Yeah, I think that's beyond fair to say. It's funny you mentioned we haven't talked in, 5-6 months, like the entirety of the offseason. It's the most Penn State thing ever to finally make the playoff, not only win a game, but then win a second game and then have the entire narrative be, great, where's your big win? To have the entire offseason still be dominated by that is the most Penn State thing ever, in the funniest way possible. And yeah, it does feel like, Penn State is really going all in on wanting to win a national title in 2025. You'll look at the move to go out there and make Jim Knowles the highest paid defensive coordinator in, I think, the history of college football. You look at how aggressive they were in the transfer portal. After their wide receivers laid an egg in the Orange Bowl, went out there and they retooled it with 3 really high-level players. And then on the defense side of the ball, you bring in UNC's leading tackler. Like, you're looking for these ways you can build your roster up to fill these holes. Because like you mentioned, everybody who you realistically could have hoped could come back, came back. Like, both Nick Singleton and Kaytron Allen opted to come back, which is crazy to me. I would have believed that in a million years if that was attainable. So for Penn State to go out there, retain the talent they did, bring in these new pieces, it kind of shows me that Penn State really thinks they can follow that Michigan-Ohio State model and make a run in 2025. As for the whole natty or bust of it all, my question to you would then be, like, if it's or bust, what does bust mean? Do you fire James Franklin? Like, if you just make the national title game, do you fire him? If you lose your first playoff game, do you fire him? Like, that would make you mean you made it 2 years in a row. I really don't know about the or bust part of it because I have to know what the bust part of it means, if that makes sense.
Bust is now Nick Saban wants to come back, so you get Nick Saban instantly.
Listen, I know he's from West Virginia, but I'll tell you what, after coaching, where was he? Louisiana, Miami, and then Alabama, I have a hard time believing he's going to find food that good in wonderful Bowlesburg, Pennsylvania. So that's going to be a hell of a thing for him to give up.
Listen, everyone's speculation right now is he's going to return to Kent State and bring them back to prominence as the MAC falls into shambles.
That'd be insane.
He needs a place that has no NIL because he has no time for that stuff anyway. Like, maybe Kent State is the last true football program where you can just go and coach ball because you're not going to have to worry about NIL.
Well, I was going to say, I think bust for me, and in the way I took it as an Ohio State fan last year, was win the Natty or the season wasn't for nothing. And especially if you look at how their season played out, being no Big Ten championship, lost to Michigan, no Big Ten championship. You didn't know what you were going to get. And if they would have fell short in the playoff, it just felt like it wasn't fire Ryan Day, although many might have been calling for his head. They sure were after the Michigan game. But so I don't know if bust necessarily is to can James Franklin, but I'm more of a neutral observer, given that I'm not a Penn State fan, and I think he's done a phenomenal job. I just look at it as more plain and simple of you win it, or you kind of the season failed because you brought so many people back with that same recipe and you didn't quite get what you got. But I see your point. Like, even making the national championship in what is now could be a 17-game season or 16-game season, it's one hell of a feat in and of itself to be able to get there because of the amount of attrition you're going to take throughout the course of that season to have that.
Yeah, I think, if you want to talk about the or bust of it all, I think, and we'll talk about this later, I'm sure, I think for this, season to really mean Penn State has taken the next step, you got to fill the trophy case with something that's not a bowl trophy. Like, the Rose Bowl trophy a couple years ago was great. The Fiesta Bowl trophy is great. They don't give you a trophy for beating SMU at home in the home playoff. You're just freezing and your butt's wet when you sit down. So there was nothing from that. But Penn State needs to add, whether that be a Big Ten title trophy, obviously a national title trophy is a whole different story. But I think Penn State needs to, bring home some form of hardware for me to consider this season a true success. And if they come up short, like if they went 10-2 with this kind of roster, I mean, talk to me after the playoff, but that would be a wildly disappointing regular season.
Absolutely.
This whole conversation is so fascinating to me because I lived the same thing with my hockey team. And this is, I think, now the third time I've mentioned this on this podcast, where Dallas made the Western Conference Finals 3 years in a row, which if you told me that they did that 10 years ago when the team was mired in bankruptcy, I would have been like, hell yeah, sign me up. But then you look at this year and they've been all in for 3 years, and you have an aging core that you're trying to win with, and you have a notoriously conservative GM who finally says, you know what, screw it, we're going for it, and he trades what was supposed to be an untouchable prospect and 2 first-round picks for one of the best players in the NHL, and then they still come up short. And granted, they probably fired their coach because he then proceeded to throw the franchise goaltender under the bus after they got eliminated and proceeded to back up over him in the exit interviews as well. That probably played a role of it too. But it's like one of those
I can see you're coping with it well.
Listen, I'm not at all. It's still stuck in my craw 3 months later. But it's just because you get to a certain point, and I mean, we're now year 10, year 11 of James Franklin, and you look year 12 of James Franklin, and you look not just with the roster, but how the stars are aligning for Penn State this year. The schedule's not terrible. It's not easy. I don't think it's fair to call it easy, but if you look at the rest of the contender class of the Big Ten, you have Ohio State, who's probably going to take a step back this year, as talented as they were last year, but there's no way that you're going to run out that same roster back-to-back years with what they lost to the NFL. You have an Oregon team that's in a bit of flux with what they've lost on offense, with the quarterback position, the running back position, and then having lost their, I think, 3 leading receivers to the NFL, and then one of their other leading receivers to a torn patellar tendon, and he's probably not going to play this year. So you got Michigan that's still in a state of flux. You got people talking about Illinois as a contender, which I buy it, but also it's Illinois. Let's be serious here. It's right there for the taking for Penn State, and for me, I'm not going to sit here and say, well, if they don't win the national title, they should fire James Franklin, because, I mean, we're not just talking about the Big Ten, right? Like, Alabama could become a Death Star again. Clemson can become a Death Star again. Georgia can become a Death Star again. And if you run into one of those super teams, then, well, shit, what are you going to do with that? But it also kind of feels like if James Franklin doesn't do it this year, is it going to happen? When is it going to happen? When is it going to line up where everything is so perfectly set up for him?
It's not. Like, to get Singleton and Allen back, to have Allar, who has improved, year over year, we can call it what it is in big games. He hasn't been good enough. He's gotten no help from his receivers, to be candid. But, you got the DC you wanted. You've got Andy Kotelnicki in year 2. Like, it's never – you got 4 out of 5 starters back along the offensive line. It's hard to imagine it looks like this again, at least in – what you can realistically claim Franklin's lifespan at Penn State to be. Who knows? Maybe Franklin's at Penn State 35 years. I'm going to bet against any coach to make it to 20 years at any given institution in modern college football. So, if it's going to happen for Penn State and James Franklin, this kind of feels like the best shot they're going to have.
Well, let's talk about sorry, Clinton, if you had something big picture.
No, I was just going to go to Drew Allar since he had just brought him up.
Yeah, I think he gets an unfair rap having been a former 5-star quarterback, because when people think 5-star quarterback, they think Trevor Lawrence, the guy who comes in and steals the starter's job 3 games into the season and leads his team to a national title. And that's just a very rare case. That's more exception than the norm. And I think something people forget about Drew is that he was a pretty raw prospect in high school. He wasn't this fully finished quarterback. It was his star ranking was based on projection, the tools that he has. And he's shown that throughout his time at Penn State. It's just never quite come together in a fully formed, finished product. And, it's another guy where it's now or never for him. He's a senior. He has no more eligibility left after this year. And it seems like Penn State's done everything they can to I don't want to say take the excuses away from him, because I think that's a poor phrasing of it, but to give him every opportunity to succeed, right? You mentioned the offensive line, you mentioned the running backs, but I think the big key that you mentioned too is the wide receivers. This is a legitimate wide receiver room for Penn State this year, but with all of that together, the receivers, but specifically Allar himself, what are areas of his game you've kind of thought, hey, he needs to get a little bit better here, he needs to refine this, if Penn State is going to achieve their goals for the season.
He's going to be smarter when his primary read isn't there, I think, is number one. The good thing about Penn State last year is the primary read was Tyler Warren, who turned out to be, a wrecking ball for the entirety of the season. And that's great when that's your primary read. That's how you get, what did he have, like 18 catches against USC? Like, that is a great thing to have. But then let's think back to the final offensive snap for Penn State last year. His primary read was taken away. He tries to throw his cross's body to Amari Evans. The ball gets picked off. He gets rattled, and his feet aren't exactly the best when, his primary read, scenario A, isn't there for the taking. He'll happily force the ball into his primary read. I think the catch Tyler Warren had, Clinton, you can probably remember best because it was like one of like two good offensive plays for Penn State against Ohio State where Allar throws it with Caleb Downs draped all over Tyler Warren. But that was his primary read, and that's where he was going. And he's not afraid to make that throw. And I think Penn State's coaches have really tried to coach him through, hey, if that's not there, let's try 2, let's try 3. And that kind of ended up backfiring for Penn State in the what was it, Orange Bowl last year? Mm-hmm. So I think getting him more comfortable when what he wants there isn't there. And then, frankly, just set your feet and deliver the ball, dude. You got all the arm strength in the world. Think about that Oregon throw on 4th and 10, where is it Mateo Uyungale is like bringing him down to the ground. Allar's able to rifle it between two defenders. If he can just put it all together and get the mental side of the game down, there's not too many guys who can play the physical side of quarterback like Drew Allar can. And I think year 2 with Andy Kotelnicki behind a much more talented offensive line, behind receivers who candidly aren't afraid to fight for the football every once in a while, I think the pieces are definitely there. And Ryan, the excuses thing I think is beyond fair to say. Allar's been the starting quarterback at Penn State for 3 years now. That's the same amount of time as Trace McSorley. Like, Christian Hackenberg had 3 years as well. Clifford had 1 million, but that's a different story. But, the kid gloves are off. He's seen enough live bullets at this stage of the game to where he's got to know what he is and isn't capable of and how to take his game to the next level. And I think that's going to be a major point of emphasis in 2025 for them.
So many people, I don't know, they love to rag on the poor kid. And I think he's a really great talent. Matt, I don't know if you caught any of our bold predictions or my bold prediction. Wasn't my bold prediction? It was one of the 2 shows we had to come up with that Allar was going to win the Heisman, and then he was also going to be the number 1 pick in the 2026 NFL draft. I feel confident in saying that he gets himself over this hurdle this year. But you mentioned his supporting cast. We know their backfield is absolutely loaded, and if I could emphasize all caps there, I will. Kaytron Allen, Nicholas Singleton, the best duo of backs in the country. I don't know if there's much debate about that. Ryan and the Notre Dame faithful may have something to say.
Don't throw me into this.
I think Jeremiah Love's a better overall back than either Singleton or Allen, but Notre Dame doesn't have both.
Yeah, that's exactly
where I'm at as well. Mm-hmm. We've already brought this up a little bit. The same question for me kind of arises about the position group where they needed someone to perform last year who didn't. Wide receiver. They've lost Tyler Warren if we're counting him as a wide receiver in the receiving production. They went and got 3 big names out of the portal to bring into here. What can we expect from these top 3 targets? How can they elevate this offense to get Penn State where they need to be?
Clinton, when we talked last year, I remember we were talking about what kind of impact can Julian Fleming have. And I feel like from the outside, a lot of people thought Julian Fleming was going to be like a top 2 receiver for Penn State. Internally around the fan base, I think it was pretty clear his body wasn't, what it would have been out of high school. He ended up actually failing his physical with the Green Bay Packers. The guy just took a beating over the course of his college career. So I think a lot of people kind of thought Fleming was going to be that. And I'll kind of flip it around. I think what Penn State brought in the portal in Devonte Ross, Trebor Pena, and Kyron Hudson are going to be a legitimate top 3 for Penn State in 2025. Because candidly, everybody else in that room left except for Liam Clifford, because a member of the Clifford family has to be on the Penn State roster on any given year. This is the 9th year that a Clifford has been on the roster. It's absolutely crazy. So, for Penn State to go out there, losing Amari Evans and Trey Wallace is a tough pill to swallow because of what their potential was. Amari Evans had this great speed. You really saw it start to emerge the back half of the year. He had long touchdowns against Minnesota, against Oregon, against Boise. He was really starting to come on. But that was kind of the only thing he could really do when there wasn't much outside of that. Trey Wallace, he caught, I want to say it was 30-something odd balls for like 700-something odd yards. That's a great guy to produce. But for what Penn State needed out of its receiver room, a clean break just probably felt like it was best for everybody. So maybe this trio of, a fifth-year guy in Kyron Hudson, a fifth-year guy in Devonte Ross, a sixth-year guy in Trebor Pena, maybe doesn't give Penn State as high of a ceiling. But, I'll be damned, that's going to raise their floor. And after 0 catches in the Orange Bowl, that floor is already pretty damn low. So I think it's really good for Penn State to go out there, kind of rebuild that room. You have talented redshirt freshmen who sat out last year, just because Penn State, I think, quickly figured out Tyler Warren was going to be the focal point of that offense. So why burn a redshirt when you're just going to throw to 44? That made a lot of sense to me in hindsight. But I do think there's going to be more bites at the apple, and it's just a matter of with how much 12 personnel they're going to go and with how many two-back sets they're going to go, you really just need 5 guys in your rotation to run routes for you and 3 of those to be consistent targets. And I think Pena, Hudson, and Ross can be 3 consistent targets. And then with Liam Clifford rounding it out for whatever we can get out of him.
Well,
I like the mix of players too, because it's not like you just go out and it's like, we're going to get 3 wide receivers and they all end up being the same guy, where it's like, we just got a bunch of speedy slot guys, which, I mean, you have that with Ross, more the take the top off the defense kind of guy, the Hudson, more big body outside guy, and then Pena is just kind of your quintessential possession receiver, right? Like, this guy's going to be open somewhere. He's not necessarily going to always break a big play off, but he's going to get open. He's going to catch the ball. And anytime you can import 200 catches, 2,500 yards, 23 touchdowns, not exact numbers, but ballpark, that's pretty handy work in the transfer portal.
With 2 of those 3 coming against Power 5 competition week in and week out. Like Devonte Ross, we saw what he did against Iowa last year. That's fantastic. Again, I think back to what Dante Cephas at Kent State did against like Georgia, and I never want to take too much away from a G5 receiver against a P5 talent, because you never know how late those P5 defensive backs are the night before you see Kent State on the schedule. Let's call a spade here. So I really do think that Penn State needs to see it on a consistent basis, and thankfully for the first time this decade, Penn State does not start the year against a Power 5 foe. So they've got a very generous on-ramp to get those receivers up to speed for the speed that they're going to see throughout the big course of the Big Ten season.
Hey, if Penn State would schedule Villanova in basketball, we'd have a little more even of a matchup. But
I don't even know.
You
if
hit nail right in the head.
Penn State basketball was the Villanova football of Pennsylvania sports. Let's be honest here.
I mean, this is why we love having you on. You took the words out of my mouth. I was going to ask is there PTSD from Dante Cephas? So then my only other thing about the receiving room is, given that when these guys come in via the portal, is there any concern about the chemistry they're going to have to open the season? Now, you just mentioned it's fairly easy start, but Oregon is looming. Is there concern with chemistry and working them into this Kotelnicki offense with Allar?
I don't want to sound rude. Can't get much worse chemistry than 0 catches last time out there. So like that
is true.
Again, I think my feeling about the Penn State wide receiver room is similar to like in circa 2015 and 2016 when Penn State's offensive line was still pretty ravaged by the sanctions, and they were like converted defensive tackles starting at guard. And I'm like, listen, just keep people upright. Just figure something out. Just get 2 yards of play, and I'll be happy. We've hit the receiver point of that about 10 years later, which is objectively pretty funny. Devonte Ross was a little bit dinged up coming out of spring ball, which is a bummer. Pena did not make it in time for spring ball, which is a bit of a bummer. But again, I really don't think it's going to be all that big of an issue against the Nevadas and FIUs of the world. And if you're not on the same page as Drew Allar by the time Oregon comes to town on September 27th, then it's kind of shaping up to be a lost season anyway. Like, either you get it down in that first month and all throughout fall camp, or I highly doubt you're going to be able to figure out how to play together while you're trying to navigate a Big Ten schedule, which, features you going to Iowa, you going to UCLA. Like, there's no layups in the Big Ten anymore. So I think they got to figure it out quick. And if they don't, it's going to be a long season.
Listen, there was a period of time this offseason where for some reason Leonard Moore decided he wanted to change his number from 15 to 2 before changing it back. And the running joke on Notre Dame Message Boards was, why doesn't he change his number to 0 to commemorate the number of catches Penn State receivers had against him in the Orange Bowl?
It's a good joke. I wish I could say it wasn't, but it's a damn good joke.
It's a good number for a cornerback. He should have done it. Enough of the offense. Let's talk defense here. The biggest story of the Penn State offseason that was full of big stories was stealing Jim Knowles from Ohio State before he had even had a chance to celebrate a national title, really. He's proven at every stop to be an elite defensive coach, going back to beyond his Oklahoma State days where he was obviously very good there as well. But is there any concern that with the complexity of his defense that, not as good in year 1 as it is in years 2 and 3, given where this Penn State defense is and what kind of the goals are for the season, is there any concern around the implementation of that, or are you anticipating this to be a relatively smooth transition from Tom Allen?
I mean, a little bit of both. Anytime you're going, it's your third defensive coordinator in 3 years. That's a lot for any college kid. Like, that sucks. Like, all the best to Tom Allen down in Clemson. I'm super thrilled he gets to be closer to his family. Great. He helped Penn State win 2 playoff games. It was great. Good for him. But if you think about, and Clinton, you can speak to this probably better than I can, not that he inherited a mess on the Ohio State defense, but what was that, 2022? That 2022 Ohio State defense wasn't what Penn State put out the last couple of years. There's a certain floor that the Penn State defense comes in on. There's a certain understanding of what the standard is. Like, everyone else on that defensive coaching staff is back. Most notably, I think Dan Connor, the linebacker coach, former All-American at Penn State. As Penn State shifts to this 4-2-5, there's going to be a lot more for, the middle linebacker with the green dot in his helmet to keep track of and control. And I think Dan Connor's going to be crucial in making sure guys are ready for that. So, I mean, yeah, anytime you're going, like I said, 3 DCs in 3 years is always tough. But again, the baseline Penn State's going in with is, I think, much higher, or not much higher, but at least higher than what Knowles had at Oklahoma State and then at Ohio State. Clinton, you think that's fair to say?
Yeah, I think he also, it sounds like, from what I've heard for Ohio State behind the scenes, is Knowles is going to be a little more free to call his game for Penn State versus some of the headbutting he had with Larry Johnson while at Ohio State and the problems of implementing in his jack position, which I assume will be free to utilize at Penn State, but Ohio State never utilized it in the time he was here, and there were a couple instances where they did. After 2 years of saying they were going to, they did it against Purdue a couple times, but you really didn't see it pop up. So I don't even know if you truly got the full iteration of a Jim Knowles defense that what he had at Oklahoma State at Ohio State. So maybe that time to adjust is a little bit quicker or easier to have if he's going to be able to run his true defense and let these guys pick it up versus butting heads with the D-line coach and then butting heads with the head coach after the Oregon loss when the head coach said, this is what you're going to do because this is what I want done, and we're going to roll with Larry. So then that kind of caused some turmoil there. But if who was it that said, I think it was Nick Saban, he said, listen, every national championship team I've had, there was shit going on between coaches and players, butting heads and everything. You don't win national championships without that happening. So we got one. But I think that could be something that doesn't impede the process as much for them as if Knowles is a little more free to just do his thing.
Which Penn State has normally let DCs do. Again, the last 3 Penn State DCs, or at least the last 2, excuse me. I mean, Manny Diaz was a head coach. Tom Allen was a head coach. I think with Jim Knowles' track record, he is afforded everything that a head coach that's now a coordinator should be afforded. So I highly doubt that Franklin's going to be too involved because, again, that guy was an offensive coordinator by trade. So I don't think he's going to have too much to do with letting Knowles not do his thing.
And the funny thing is, people talk about the multiple year time it takes to put that defense in. Ohio State was a top 5 defense all 3 years underneath him. Like they had years where he was too tight and then too aggressive, and then year 3 was like the perfect culmination of everything. but they were still a top 5 defense all 3 years. So it's not like you fell off the face of the earth, hired Jim Knowles, and you stayed off the face of the earth. You came back down pretty strong. So if anyone's thinking that, yes, they may take some time to get everything, Penn State's still going to be a top 5 defense. It's not going to change that much.
Yeah, so, I think that's fair to say.
Talking about the defense, though, and getting to player specific, they saw multiple key defenders who go to the NFL draft. Abdul Carter, Kevin Winston Jr., who I was kind of hoping might be a Bengal, didn't get that. Jalen Reed, Kobe King. Give us some names that we need to be keeping our eyes on for this presumptive top 3 to 5 defense heading into 2025.
Yeah, I think the 2 biggest names, at least for Penn State defensively, are on the defensive line, which is crazy because, you think about these names that are off the Penn State defensive line now, guys like Abdul Carter, Amin Vanover, Keziah Izzard, Devon J. Thomas. Penn State's, top 2 units were filled with 6th and 5th year guys last year, and all of them are gone. And their starting unit now is still going to be entirely seniors, which is just kind of crazy to think about. Not much depth behind them, which is kind of frustrating, but that's a story for a different day. So the top 2 guys for Penn State are Dennis Sutton, who I think really had a breakout in the playoff. Unbelievable interception against Notre Dame, and then the lamest celebration, the lamest celebration I've ever seen. Sorry, Denai. That was really cool. And then Zane Durant, who again, the story with him is that he's undersized for a DT, but again, he's 295. That's not undersized no matter where you are. Unless you're an offensive tackle, that's not undersized. And he is a very, very good pass rusher along the interior. And that's the ultimate ace in the hole, I think, for any defense. If you can get penetration in the A-gap, especially on long developing dropbacks, it's a nightmare for opposing quarterbacks. So those 2 are I think the ones that you're going to hear talked about the most. But Tony Rojas, at linebacker, had that amazing pick 6 against SMU. I had heard rumors, but it kind of got confirmed. He tore something up in his shoulder 2 games into the season because it always kind of looked like he was protecting his, one of his shoulders throughout the course of the season. Turns out he super was. So he got it cleaned up, I think, the day after the Orange Bowl. I think it was that big a deal that it's season's over. Tony, you're going under the knife, and you get that sorted out. So similar to what, I don't know if you guys remember this time last year, I was talking about Drew Shelton for Penn State on the offensive line, how he really struggled in that Peach Bowl against Ole Miss. And then it turns out he had shoulder surgery 4 days after the season. And part of his struggle was that he couldn't move his arm. And Shelton bounces back. And I think he's honorable mention All Big Ten last year. He was more than serviceable. I think we're going to see Tony Rojas have a similar thing, where a lot of the criticism with Tony was that he doesn't wrap up. He flies around, but he's not the best tackler. And it's all right, let's see the kid with 2 arms now. Let's see what he can do. So those are the 3 names I think are most intriguing. And again, in the Jim Knowles defense, it's not one that's, big into turnovers. Ohio State had 10 picks last year, I want to say, if that. Maybe it was 8. It's not a ton. So you're going to see guys who are going to, show up in the box score in terms of tackles for loss, and sacks. And I would put, my money on those 3 to have the biggest impact there.
I feel like when the defense made the change, of course, was after the Oregon game, was when they started letting downs. Because, again, you'll hear this time and time again if you haven't, Matt. It is a safety-driven defense for Jim Knowles. And when they started letting Caleb Downs roam and play in the box, the defense changed. It changed. So I guess, what do we have? Is it, I don't want to botch this, Zakee Wheatley, safety with Penn State, right?
Yep.
What are the other 2 going to look like beside him and kind of the talent next to him?
That's the big challenge right now. The quarterback room for Penn State is fine. I think A.J. Harris is getting mocked as a first-round pick right now. That would make him the first defensive back out of Penn State to go in the first round. I thought it was going to be K.J. Winston. If he doesn't get hurt in between the Bowling Green week, who knows what happens. But that other safety spot is very much up for grabs. They wanted Dejon Lane to be that guy last year as a true freshman. He kind of got moved to the wayside after some early struggles, so I'm excited to see him bounce back. And then the rare boomerang transfer, King Mack, is back from Alabama after a quick 1-year trip to Tuscaloosa after getting what I heard was a pretty nice NIL bag. After the exodus of defensive backs after Saban retired, I think Alabama was throwing around cash pretty good. So King Mack got to jump in there, and now he comes right back to Penn State a year later. So that's the biggest question mark for me, for Penn State in 2025 is that safety room. You got Zakee Wheatley, who's 6'2", lanky as hell, rangy as hell. He can play everywhere. But who you're going to have next to him is a major, major mystery. And that's going to be something that Penn State's got to sort out quick because there's really only two options for it, in Dejon Lane and King Mack.
So kind of wrapping up, we really already kind of trampled all over this question at the onset because we already talked about what is success in 2025 for Penn State via Matt Flip. But how do you see this kind of playing out this year? Like, do you think they put it all together?
I hate to say it. I've heard people talk about this before. I think it was the Cover 3 guys talked about this. Can the Penn State offense be better than the Penn State defense? And I can't name the last time that was the case. Like, you think back and, yeah, sure, Jahan Dotson was great. Like, you have these explosive players. Like, maybe 2017 is the last time you can truly say it. But, like, that was McSorley, Barkley, Mike Gesicki. Like, that was a whole different ballgame. Penn State doesn't have those guys walking through the door. So, for me, success for Penn State is going 11-1 again. I think they need to repeat that. And with that would come a win over either Oregon or Ohio State, which Penn State needs to get. It would be a very funny bit if Penn State, finally gets over one of those humps, and then the immediate next one, they fall flat on their face. Like, I don't know why that's like the funnier scenario to me. Beating Oregon in the whiteout, I think would be really fun. And then losing to Ohio State again would break a lot of people's brains, maybe even mine included. I still haven't recovered from that Davidson Igbinosun pick to end the first half. That was the most absurd thing I've ever seen. My brain will never be the same after that. So for me, Penn State, like I said, they got to bring home some kind of hardware. I think that's fair to say. Win the Big Ten title, go 11-1, get to Indy, and win the thing this time. They came damn close last year. They ran all over Oregon, which I did not see coming. Penn State's offense outplayed their defense that day. And do I want to see Penn State's defense be that bad again? No, but I hope it's a sign of things to come in terms of if you can get in a shootout, it's not an immediate death sentence for a Penn State offense. And I think that would constitute success. It's got to look different. You got to show me you're taking the next step. Andy Kotelnicki is a great offensive coordinator. Like, I don't want that lost in anything, but they've got to find a way to make it work in big games, and you got to bring home some kind of hardware. And if in the process you can, to be the first overall pick in Pittsburgh, no less, next year, that's going to be just a really cool storyline. So there's a lot of factors that'll go into Penn State having success in 2025. But no matter what happens, to being able to build off of a long postseason run, I think is really going to help this team should they make it again. You always hear how hard it is to win, in the playoffs, and you kind of have to learn to lose in there before you learn to win in there. So I'm really excited to see how that plays out in this, relatively still new, brave new world of the 12-team playoff.
Listen, Allar may get, I've heard his NFL team was the Browns. He may get a chance to go play next to the great retired jersey at Colorado, Shedeur Sanders, if the Browns are picking top 3 again next year.
That's crazy to me, man. Listen, that's wild. That's
Absolutely influenced by Daddy on that one.
Oh my God!
Could you imagine Cordell Stewart, how he feels? Dude actually did something for Colorado.
I know, and doesn't have his name up in lights. Yeah. Well, Prime's not in college football 26 either. So I got to give Prime credit. That guy does not have an inauthentic bone in his body. That guy believes what he wants to believe, and I respect the hell out of him for it. Yeah, if you can retire your son's jersey at Colorado, which is a job I'm not convinced he really even wants to be at anymore, go for it, dude. Good for you.
He's looking for that piece out. I'm telling you, he was looking for the Cowboys, didn't pull the trigger. They went with some other, I don't even know who the hell that guy was. We have a friend who's a big Cowboys fan.
Schottenberger, I think.
Okay, there you go. Yeah, there we go. Yep. So, I don't know, man. It's going to be an exciting one for Penn State. And, I love my Buckeyes. But if they can't get it this year, I would love the Big Ten to make it 3 straight just to shut the SEC homers up. And I'd love to see Franklin get it off of his back and have Penn State take one. That'd be pretty sweet.
Oh, man. I mean, if the SEC goes 3 straight years without beating the Big Ten in the playoff, kind of right around the time, this is all hypothetical, it became legal for everybody to pay players, there's going to be some questions that need to be answered. I don't know. You never know.
Absolutely. Well, Kirby Smart, all his players are busy doing or paying speeding tickets right now. So They don't really get paid for much else.
Yikes.
And then Texas just hands out Lamborghinis to every recruit who walks in their stadium now. So
Oil money
it's
down
an
there. That's
interesting
different.
world, man, that NIL has come to, and that can be a conversation for another day. But I know here in Columbus, people are pissed because Ohio State's missing on some of these targets, and they're doing what they did the last time when NIL started, and Ohio State's playing it very much, keeping their hands clean. They're following the rules, and they believe that they'll win out here, and then teams like USC will have to they'll have no money to pay those kids with, and then by December those kids will be back in the portal.
Bro, USC already does not have money. They're cutting it
I
out
know.
in
Did
the
you see
athletic
that?
department.
$200 million.
They're cutting. Yeah, that's kind of. Penn State's very funny. You know, you think next year with Singleton, Allen, Aller, Dennis Sutton, all this NIL money is going to clear up, but they've whiffed to Notre Dame, Ryan. You know this on like the last like 5 recruits, and you're like, where's the money? And then you find out Terry Pagula, who owns the Buffalo Bills and Sabres, cares about hockey more, and he'll write a check to Gavin McKenna to come play hockey instead.
I do not understand that man because he basically didn't he build the entire arena on Penn State's campus?
Yeah, Penn State hockey was a club team until Terry came in and basically said, "I will fund everything about this hockey program."
So
and that's what he wants to do.
He loves Penn State hockey, doesn't care about the football team, loves the Bills, and he does not give a shit about the Sabres. It makes absolutely no sense to me.
Very interesting. Hey, man, the guy knows where he wants to put his money. He knows where he's investing.
Yeah, hey.
Didn't I just see you tweet from our account the other day, Ryan, about some stud that Penn State just signed?
Yeah, Gavin McKenna.
Okay.
He's going to be the number 1 pick in the 26th draft. He's insane. He's so
When the
good.
Blue Jackets are there, we'll get him. I'm kidding. He'll go to the Blackhawks to join
No,
Connor
he's
Bedard.
going to go to the Penguins. It's going to happen. They're going to rig
they
the
gonna be
draft
that
lottery
bad?
again. Yeah, they're trying to be bad. He's going to be a Penguin.
Crazy times.
see-
Penn State can't land any other top targets in the region in football, but a Canadian decides he can cut an NIL check to come play hockey in Center County.
Moose Jaw, Saskatchewan, arguably the best draft prospect since Connor McDavid, and he's coming to Penn State.
Pretty sweet.
Crazy.
Keep it in the Big
It'll
Ten,
be
man.
fun. That's a good
Yeah.
arena if you ever get a chance. Where was your trip this year? To I know you guys are trying to do all the Big Ten stadiums throughout the course of the seasons. Where's this year's trip?
We still haven't figured it out.
We contemplated, so we're trying to do Friday night games so that we don't miss a full day of Saturday action. Although I love Ryan, but he may have to waver on that here to get one in. But there is a marathon. Did I get it correct this time? Half marathon for Sam.
It's a full marathon.
A full marathon that she's
For
going to
some
run.
reason.
And we were targeting the Nebraska at Minnesota game.
Nice.
But it's the same weekend as her marathon, and I've been ordered to not do that.
Yep.
Oh, I thought the marathon was
So-
going to be in the Twin Cities. I'm like, well,
That would work out
Oh,
legit.
that would have been insane. That would have worked out so well. No, it's in Columbus, and she's like, I want to go to Minnesota with you, and I can't go before the marathon. I'm like, all right, well, I'm not going to argue with you on this.
Yeah.
That's fair.
So we got to spin one out here. I mean, I know that Villanova at Penn State will be a pretty legit one. No,
Listen, if you want to see the temporary seating that they're building in Beaver Stadium, that might be your best opportunity to go check it out.
yeah. Yeah, we got to figure that one out so we can get our plans booked up here. Hell, we might have to just do a MACtion on a weeknight game before the MAC blows up and disappears because that's coming. Although I think Louisiana Tech took OU's for some spot in the Sun Belt, so maybe we're saved. Maybe it won't
For
happen.
now.
Yeah, for now. But we'll see. But we'll keep you posted. Definitely when we come to town to Penn State in the future, we'll hit you up and see if we can meet you up there. Well, I know you're in
Chicago.
You're in Chicago. I forgot that. My bad. Totally whiffed on
In
that
Penn
one.
State, famously easy to get to from anywhere. I'll tell you.
Yeah, I
what.
know, right?
It's not like you got to drive 3 hours no matter what airport you're flying into.
I was gonna say I hear they got great access with airports. So, well, I screwed that one up, Matt. We'll have to convene sometime when we're in Illinois.
Yeah, we'll make it work. We'll find a way.
Absolutely.
At the Ryan Field. Well, before we let you get out of here, Matt, refresh our listeners who have not seen you for 7 months where they can find your work.
Yeah, you can find the podcast. It's Roar Lions Roar, a Penn State podcast. My co-host Bill and I have been going position by position since early May, giving everybody a breakdown of what the Penn State roster is shaping up to be in 2025. We're in your feed once a week as of right now. When the season rolls around, we'll be in your feed at minimum twice a week. You can find me on social at RLRMattFlip for all of my takes on, as I always say, America's only morally good NFL franchise, the Chicago Bears, as well as Penn State basketball, which recently had a player be arrested for allegedly being a Russian spy. That's not a joke. That's actually something that is actively happening, which is very, very funny. That's a crazy one. And then you can find the podcast socials. It's at RLR blog on all the socials, Twitter, X, Blue Sky, all that kind of fun stuff. We have a lot of fun throughout the course of the season. And we're just, this is year 5 of us being podcast only. We were a written medium for a long time, and it's been a wild ride. It's been a lot of fun.
I was planning on going to bed early tonight, but I think I'm going to end up in an internet rabbit hole now. Holy smokes.
Are you looking it up now?
I'm going to have to. Yeah. What's
You're
this
going to have
name?
to. It's wild. Daniil Kasatkin.
Oh, that's
His
totally
highlight
a Russian.
tape.
Total Russian spy name.
There was a time, and then we can just cut me off if you don't care about my Penn State basketball story. There was a time where Penn State basketball was down so bad. The recruits were John Hara, who at the time was signed to go play tight end at West Point. And Penn State basketball said, no, come play here instead. And then a bunch of Lithuanian dudes with highlight tapes called like the Lithuanian LeBron James. And that was Penn State basketball for a while. So I got some scars there too.
Listen, people in Columbus don't like Penn State because you guys are a thorn in the Buckeye, especially the Chris Holtman Buckeyes, and causes a lot of extra stress for those of us who indulge in college basketball.
Fair enough.
And waiting on this program to make an NCAA tournament again.
This dude looks like a Russian spy. Like, you got to look less conspicuous, my dude. Like, grow a mullet or something. Good God.
You're gonna have a fun time down that rabbit hole tonight, Ryan. I'll tell you what.
Holy smokes. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's going to be fun. No early bedtime for me. Well, thank you, everyone, once again for joining us. We have a big couple of weeks here. We have Oregon. Dale Bliss joining us again on Wednesday night to talk the Ducks. On Thursday, Jeff Ehrman is going to be joining us once again to talk the Maryland Terrapins. And then next week, Clinton is going to be on vacation. He is leaving me to do all of the podcasting, and we have 4 episodes next week. Surely I will handle that well. It's going to be fun. Thanks, everyone, for joining us. We will see you all again on Wednesday night.
See you guys.